Hello, I'm Anna Miller, the Associate Pastor here at First United Methodist Church in Albany, and I'm so glad you're taking just a moment to tune in with me today. I want to ask us, before we get started, when have you been the most afraid? You know, I think about those times when I have to walk out to my car at night when it's dark, or when I'm home alone and I hear a noise and the hairs just kind of stand up on the back of your neck because you don't know what's in the shadows. You don't know what made that noise. You know, just watching a commercial of a scary movie will haunt me when I wake up in the middle of the night. You know, that deep fear can make our heart pound and the hairs stand up on the back of our neck, and we feel that sense of foreboding that overwhelms us. And there's other times when we are afraid too, when we have to step out into the unknown and we don't know what our next steps are. This might be a time when we've lost a job. Maybe we are or were in a season when sin seemed to captivate our life or the life of a loved one. You know, our most frightening experiences, when we're in the darkest valley, fear can grip us and cause us to become paralyzed, not able to even think straight. And it can often bring us to a crisis of faith. Well, the reality is our journey in life will always eventually lead us through some dark valleys. As King David said in Psalm 23:4, I want to read to you what he said in his darkest valleys. He says, "Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." You see, King David was a man after God's own heart, and he walked through the darkest valleys too. But he doesn't stop here. He says, "I fear no evil, for you are with me." How is this possible to fear no evil even in the darkest valleys of life? Is it possible to have complete faith and peace even as in these times as King David did? And he proclaims that he did so simply because he knew that his Lord was with him. There's a confidence that King David is portraying here that leads us to believe that in the darkest valleys of his journey, that it was of no consequence to him. They really weren't dark at all. He knew that the Lord was with him in the dark valleys and even when he was safe on the mountaintops, because he knew that God was with him. Now we might ask, where did this confidence come from and how can we get some? Now in one of my favorite books, A Shepherd's Look at the 23rd Psalm, written by W. Philip Keller, who was a pastor and who was also a true shepherd at one time, he gives us some insight into how King David may have gained this fearlessness and this confidence. Now we know that King David was a shepherd too when he was a young boy. And Keller points out that any good shepherd will take the sheep on a journey during the summer months to reach the higher ground on the mountaintops or on that flat table where the soil is rich and fertile. So in the summer, they would graze on the mountaintop. It would have been covered by snow during the winter months, so no grazing was done then. But in order for the shepherd to be able to lead the sheep to the top, he would have had to have taken a long and slow, arduous journey along the mountain to get to the top. They couldn't have gone straight up because it would have been too rocky, too steep. And they would have needed to have stopped occasionally to find sustenance, to find food and water, to get to the top. So it was a long journey. And there would have been many difficulties with prey very near. Now this is interesting. He says that the only way that the sheep will follow the shepherd and stay with him during this long trek to the mountain top was because they had spent the long winter months entirely alone with the shepherd in the lower elevations in the dark valleys. And the dark days of winter, 24/7, they received the shepherd's constant attention day and night. They were never out of his presence. So in these dark days or these dark valleys in the wintertime, they learn to trust the shepherd. Their every need was taken care of day and night, and they intimately got to know their shepherd. So when it was time to follow him to higher ground, it was no big deal, even when they ran into difficult times, because they trusted him. And they knew that if they were in his presence, that they would be fine. Well, King David would have known this too. He knew his shepherd. He knew God was always taking care of him. He knew fear was dispelled, especially when he was in the presence of his Lord. So King David writes this psalm from the eyes of a true shepherd, and he confidently proclaims his faith and trust in his Lord and his God, because he knew what it was like to constantly take care of the sheep and be taken care of by his Lord and shepherd. He says, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. And so I ask us, do we fear evil in the darkest valleys? And I think it depends on how well we know and trust our shepherd, Jesus Christ. And this can only come when we spend time with him on a daily basis, to know that he is with us at all times, the good times and the bad times. And if we too spend time with our shepherd and experience him taking care of us, giving us glimpses of himself, bringing us peace right when we need it, dispelling the darkness, especially in our most frightening days and circumstances, this is where we can have confidence too, that we can fear no evil even in the darkest valley. And really, those darkest valleys aren't dark at all, because we are in the very presence of our Lord, in whom we place our trust and our faith, our true shepherd, Jesus Christ. It is my prayer and hope that you embrace this truth and word for you today, to help you see his presence in the dark valleys and know that your true shepherd is with you, that he is ever taking care of you. I hope you embrace this today. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.